Welcome, everyone. Our guest today is a chemical engineer, Diane Doise. First of all, thank you very much for sparing the time to join us today. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to us before moving on to the questions?
Sure. As you said, my name is Diane Doise. I currently live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in the U.S. So Baton Rouge is about 65 miles to the west of New Orleans. So I'm sure most of you know where New Orleans is. I have a degree in chemical engineering from Louisiana State University, and I've been a practicing or working engineer now for almost 30 years. I currently work for a company called Syngenta, which is an agribusiness. The facility where I make, it's a chemical plant, and we make herbicides and pesticides, which are used all over the world, including in Turkey. For the last, I'd say 25 years, I've been working as an automation or process control engineer. So real generically, that means that I develop the control algorithms and program them for the computers that actually control the chemical plants.
Could you please let us know how and when you decided to go for engineering as a career and how you chose your branch of engineering?
Well, I actually grew up in a small city in central Louisiana and didn't have really any exposure to engineers or what engineers do. In school, I was always drawn to science and math. Didn't really know anything about engineering. So I had, at the time, was very interested in science, but wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I went to LSU, which is a huge research university. So I knew that whatever I eventually decided, I'd have the options there. And I actually initially went into biochemistry because I love chemistry. I always have. And when I got to school, my college roommate was her degree, or she had declared for chemical engineering. And I was like, what is this chemical engineering? And so she told me, it's more about the application of chemistry than research. And you only need a 4-year degree to get a really good job. And engineers have the highest paid salaries right out of school. And I'm like, sign me up. Because the idea of if I'd stayed in biochemistry or any kind of research-based science, I'd have had to go on and get a PhD, which at the time was not saying that I wasn't interested, but I knew that I really didn't want to spend all my time in a research lab. And the thought of being in a plant or something else. And so I really wasn't, even when I got into it, 100% sure. And so I chose chemical engineering because I love chemistry. And so it incorporated that chemistry, that passion that I had. So I decided to do what we call a co-op or a cooperative education. So for a year, actually for 2 years, I would work a semester and then come back and go to school and then work a semester. And so I did that where I had 3 rotations with the company. And that really helped cement, at least for me, my decision, because it allowed me to really understand what a chemical engineer did.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Moving on to the second question. Was there anyone specific that was inspirational or someone you took as a role model in your studies, research, or work in chemical engineering?
This one actually is kind of hard for me. No one person stands out. In my career, I have met many amazing engineers who I've said, I want to be more like them. My first boss when I was hired was a very good boss to me in that he was very empathetic and understanding, and really wanted me to succeed. So I was like, I want to be like that. I've met other technical engineers who have been very well received. They are able to really get their ideas across. They become subject matter experts or trusted advisors. And so I see them and I'm like, I want to be like them. So I feel that pretty much most people have something that you can model. And so I just look for that. And what do they do to get the results? So how can I modify myself and my behavior to get those same kind of results?
I think that's a great perspective.
Yes.
Thank you.
And while while talking about how someone else inspired you, could you also recommend like publications, specific books, or any articles that inspired you in this field, or in general?
Right. So as a chemical engineer and as a controls or automation engineer, there are multiple technical publications that I look at on a monthly basis. And that for me is kind of how like I said, it's been almost 30 years since I went to school, and the industry has changed a lot, which is one of the things I love about engineering is that there's always something new. So that's one of the places I find out what's new. So if you're looking at different types of engineering, there's a lot of great websites, Engineer Girl, Society for Women Engineers. And then also there are particular, the professional societies, which a lot of those are geared towards the technical side of things. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't check it out and see what they're talking about. It may go over your head right now, but one day you'd be surprised at, oh, okay, you're just reading it like it's the newspaper.
Thanks.
Moving on to the next question. Different fields of engineering are merging to work together nowadays. What do you foresee about the future of chemical engineering?
So you're saying are merging nowadays. And I'm not really sure what you mean. I think I know what you mean by that. But we always work together from day one in collaboration. I've always worked in manufacturing sites. So I've always worked with chemical engineers, electrical engineers, manufacturing engineers, industrial engineers, and they all fill different roles. And even within those roles, you'll find different types of engineering. For example, I work in automation. So I'm a chemical engineer. So usually you only see chemical engineers in automation in chemical plants, refineries, those kinds of places where our knowledge of the chemical reactions and the processing equipment is invaluable. But the group that I work in is a mixture. We have electrical engineers, we have some computer specialists, and we all work together. We have different expertise. And so we work together to provide the best products. And I think you see that in a lot of engineering. So don't be so concerned that you choose the right brand or flavor of engineering. Within engineering, even within your classes, there's a lot of similarity. Basically, engineers are problem solvers. And so we're taught the technical knowledge, the science that we need to be good problem solvers. But that's also one of the things that I like about engineering is I don't have to do it all myself. I work with multiple different people. In fact, on a daily basis, I'm working with process engineers who are chemical, maintenance engineers who are generally mechanical, electrical instrument engineers or instrument engineers, because they're the ones that are designing and installing the instruments. So it's I always have someone out there who has my back. It's not me. It's not just me. I'm part of a team, and I really enjoy that.
Thank you for your response.
Yeah. Okay, so we can now move on to the role of women in engineering. And you are a mentor at the International FabFems website, right?
Mhm.
And you
Yes.
are also a member of Society of Women Engineers, which our club is named after, and which is where we met. Okay. Um, you aim to inspire the next generation of young women scientists. And so, what are your observations about the ratio of women and men involved in the engineering field?
So unfortunately, we've kind of stalled as women. I believe we're 10% or less um, working in women in the field. There are many reasons for this. Some of it is cultural, where engineering has just not always been seen as something that is female friendly. And we don't see a lot of female engineers, which is one of the reasons I do a lot of outreach with these groups like yours. Because if a young girl or young woman never meets a female engineer, why would she think she could become one? And women are more than capable of being engineers. Um, Also, the culture thing. In fact, I was just recently, I was with SWE at a Girl Scouting event and actually had the mothers dragging their daughters over to our booth and saying, come and see these women. I want you to talk to these women. You need to be an engineer. So we are seeing the change in our culture, and that now mothers are realizing, and parents in general, that engineering is a good career and is something that their daughters can do and excel at and be happy in. Within the work environment, you're correct. There are a few women. It depends a lot on the industry or where you are, which is one of the reasons I've joined SWE, because it provides me with access to women engineers that I can use for um, networking and mentoring and counseling. But I also find that in my 30 years, manufacturing has changed. Corporate or the corporate world realizes that we need diversity in our plant sites and in our companies to create better solutions. If all we have are the same people, and I don't just mean color, religion, gender, it's also your personality. And if everyone is the same, you don't really come up with creative, innovative solutions. And creative, innovative solutions are how we're going to make this world a better place. And two, as the younger generations begin to work, the younger generations are much more attuned and inclusive. A lot of people nowadays were raised by single mothers, or their mothers worked. Very few of us anymore have mothers who were stay-at-home mothers, who did not work outside of the home. I shouldn't say they didn't work, because they work. And that's also an acceptable choice. I'm not talking bad about that at all. But I think that our society and our world is changing so that we realize that anyone can try or can do anything if they set their mind to it and they work hard at it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was very inspirational, and let's hope it continues this way. The ratio kind of balances out. Okay, let's move on. How did you first figure out that you wanted to inspire young female scientists or engineers? And could you please mention details about your work for this cause?
Oh, awesome. So, like I said, I want to see more women in the workplace. I want to work with more women. And I was raised volunteering. I think that's something that's important. So when I got to a certain point in my career or in my life, I wanted to start giving back. And I had to look at what was I really passionate about. And I'm really passionate about my career. And like I mentioned before, I kind of lucked into being an engineer. Really didn't purposefully seek it out. And so I'm like, there are many other women, young girls, young women like me, who have these skills and they want to do something exciting. They want to use their skills and their passions, but they just don't know where they can do that. And so I want to help them have an easier time of it, or help them make that choice. Let them know that there are many careers out there in STEM, science, engineering, technology, math, that they can do. There's no reason that they can't. And that there's a lot of opportunities out there. Did you want me to speak about what I do as a job?
Sure,
Or
you can. You can also add that as well.
I actually do a lot of mentoring now that I'm a senior in my career. I work with a lot of the young female engineers at work. I try to mentor them, coach them, be a someone that they can come to when they have issues, because I've experienced a lot of the things that they're going through. You know, nothing that they're, and that's one thing, nothing that they're going through is unique, right? So SWE is a great place to find someone else who's had those same experiences, and maybe they can help guide you and make it a little easier for you. So it's not, so, and I want them to be successful, because ultimately, they're going to take over for me, right? I want to retire one day, but I want the company, I want the world to be successful. And the only way to do that is to improve those around us and the people that are coming behind us. So I do a lot of work with the Girl Scouts, which is an organization here in the U.S. I'm not sure if they're international. And they have the girls, right? And SWE has the engineers. So we do things where we share what is engineering. We do workshops. We do activities very similar to a lot of the work that you do. So we're trying to show these people how science is used in the real world, how math is used in the real world. I also coached a all girls first robotics Lego League team with the Girl Scouts. And that is a great way to introduce them into how the science and the math is used. I find that's one of the things that's kind of dull and boring with the way our world teaches science and math. Rote memorization, I hate rote memorization. In fact, that's one of the things I liked about engineering, is you didn't have to memorize a lot of stuff because there's just too much to memorize. And most of the tests are open book, but that doesn't mean you're going to pass. But it didn't make it any easier, but at least you didn't have to memorize. So yes, so I've done a lot of work there. I've also, like you said, I'm the Fab Fims, so I'm a mentor available on Fab Fims. I also mentor. SWE has mentoring available, so I've also mentored through SWE. And so I've done formal and informal mentoring. And I've also been mentored. In fact, I am still being mentored. I don't think I'll ever stop being mentored. So it's great to be able to pass it on, share the knowledge that I've gained.
All right, that was a great answer to my question. Thank you. I think you understood it well.
And here is the last question. What were the key challenges, if any, you have faced when you were studying chemical engineering in university or in your career as a chemical engineer?
So I will tell you, so when I was in school, grade school, high school, I was never really challenged. Our schools aren't always do a good job of having programs for the more intelligent people or people who learn things faster. So when I got to college, it was a whole different level. And when I first started, in fact, my first chemie class, I made a C. I had never made a C in my life, but this was a totally new concept, new ideas that I had never been introduced to before. And I also really lacked study skills because I'd never really had to study. I'd studied, but I'd never really had to really study. And so at that point, I could have given up and gone to something easier, but I didn't. I was like, I can do this. I just have to buckle down and work harder. So here I was, a sophomore in college, and I was having to learn study skills, how to truly study. And some of that was taught to me by my fellow classmates who hadn't always had things as easy. So in a way, even though they perhaps didn't have as good grades or natural abilities like I did, they actually were doing better than me because they had learned how to study. So I guess my point is that don't let something, if it's difficult, stop you. Let it challenge you. Rise to the challenge. What can you change? Who can you get help from? I had to seek help from others, whereas I was used to being the one that people came to for help. But now I was having to go ask others for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And you can do it. You just have to work harder, practice more. And so that was kind of my, and also then in engineering is not a solo degree. You don't get that degree by yourself. Find a group of people in your classes that you work well with and form that core study group. Because sometimes, and I know I had my core study group. I had about 3 or 4 different people, and we would work on homework together. We would work on projects together. And these weren't always the people who were my friends. Don't be afraid to search out, because in fact, my best friend, who I'm still best friends today, we could not work together because our styles were just too different. And so I had to find people that I kind of clicked with. And so we helped each other out. And it's kind of the same thing as in the working environment. Engineers don't work alone. We work with others. We work as a team. So you're also learning valuable team skills, just like you are in robotics and in your SWE next group. Once I started work as a chemical engineer, probably the thing that I've had the most difficulty with in my career is I am not a typical or a stereotypical female. I'm very strong. I'm very assertive, very opinionated. But I love people. I want to support people. And I'm not naturally extremely empathetic. I've really had to work at that. It's not that I don't care. It just doesn't necessarily come to me naturally. So I've had issues in my career because and this is kind of what is called the tightrope bias. Women, we have to walk a line. To be good at our jobs, we have to be confident. We have to speak up. We have to share our ideas. But at the same time, as women, when we're seen as being very assertive, very confident, it is not what culture wants women to be, right? So I've had a lot of, and this is not a technical issue, right? I've never really had problems with my technical skills. It's more of a professional issue. And so I've had problems because I don't want to change my personality, because my personality is part of what makes me successful. But I've had to learn how to sometimes temper my assertiveness. I am trying. So that is also part of why I'm so passionate about more women in engineering and also advocating for the women in engineers, and not just women, but anyone who is passionate and assertive, and trying to let people know that, hey, this is not a bad thing, right? Why are you having this reaction to this person? They're doing a great job. And so that has something that I've struggled with. And I think depending on the culture of your organization, it is something that, we're redefining what it means to be female. And when you vary from that stereotype, it can be problematic.
Mhm.
But don't let that stop you. Use it as an opportunity to educate those around you. And a lot of times I find that those around me don't even realize that what they've done. And if you can have a calm, logical discussion with them, many of them will change their behavior, or at least it's now in their mind. They're thinking about it.
Yeah, also we as a club, we also aim to break that kind of stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you as well.
No, thank you. It starts at every level. And so the people that you work with, and the men and the boys and the women around you are becoming aware, right? We don't know what we don't know. So if we don't know if something is hurting someone else, we don't know that we need to stop or change.
Mhm.
Thank you for your valuable insights and know-hows. And this was the end of our interview. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
You're
Yes,
very
and
welcome.
we also wish this interview was inspirational to everyone and anybody. And thanks for listening as well.